Izuku Midoriya, at the age of 4, would learn of his brand new quirk. It's a quirk that even many doctors didn't really understand. They didn't understand why his genetics and his acting and everything around his body reacted in such a way to basically make him strong, make him powerful. But it seems as if there's a way for him to be even stronger. There's different ways, as if acting of this as a different role play, or kind of acting as a different person, makes him an insane amount stronger. No one's really sure why it has anything to do with anything, but an American doctor would eventually approach and would say that this reminds him, his strength, his acting, his role play reminds him of something they have in the States, and even have in Japan a good little bit, but mostly in the States or in America. That would be WWE, or, well, wrestling. Not the wrestling where you're, actually grappling and you're properly, trying to take people down. This wrestling is more, well, acting, creative, and it's more of a sports entertainment. Now, this is something the doctors in Japan would be very interested in, but Izuku wouldn't get much answers. All he would know is that his quirk would be deemed as a wrestling quirk. When he would go back home, he would begin looking up this wrestling from Japan, from WWE, from anywhere you can think of, and he begins to try to learn and kind of recognize how to utilize some of these people's techniques. And soon, very, very soon, he becomes extremely popular with the kids at his school. Even Bakugo fawns over him. The fact that he can do such amazing things, pick people up, throw them, act like he's extremely strong, tackle, spear, anything. They all think that he's some crazy jock, and frankly he is. He is the alpha male of their species, and he proves that to everybody. He stands there, muscles out, shredded. Izuku Midoriya is the one and only wrestling hero, or that's what he's going to be. He tells Bakugo that, and even tells Bakugo that he'll carry him all the way up to becoming a strong hero just like him. Bakugo believes that he could be a hero too, but it's pretty obvious that Izuku is so much cooler and more awesome than him that he decides to kind of follow along with Izuku, and many people start believing that he's some hype man, you could say. But it's not that simple. It's not like he's just some hype man. He is the advocate. He's the advocate for Izuku Midoriya. Now, that doesn't really matter too much, at least at this moment, but as they grow older, it would matter a lot more. Izuku would become accustomed to Bakugo speaking for him. Bakugo would become kind of that person that would tell people to get the hell away from him, or you gotta pay more money if you want to be in the face of the one and only, the beast incarnate, Izuku Midoriya. Izuku would wear around a belt, yeah, a WWE strap, a belt around his waist, and it would be proof that he is the champ. No one else is the champ, he's the only champ, and he's the best to ever do it. He would gain a massive ego, but frankly, it would be kind of warranted. Izuku is extremely strong. So much to the fact that he could toss people off of buildings and send them flying across neighborhoods. He could do whatever he wanted. He could topple buildings by throwing a person into that said building. He could do such crazy things, especially with his quirk. His quirk derives off of how loud people love him, how much they hate him, the chants, anything you can think of. All of it is derived off of that. His strength is, his power is, all he can do is get stronger. And if they want a fight, Izuku is always down for a fight. And even at a young age, him and Bakugo would go to kind of these training sessions that these heroes would put up, and immediately Bakugo would always be the person to walk up in front of everybody and point toward Izuku, saying that nobody speaks to him, and Bakugo would begin saying his now famous phrase: "Ladies and gentlemen, I am Katsuki Bakugo, the advocate for the reigning, defending, undisputed WWE champion, Izuku Midoriya. And he would intro Izuku in every single time, no matter what. He would intro him in, making sure that the Beast Incarnate, the WWE champion, never walks in without the crowd knowing exactly who he is. Izuku would grow a massive ego, even greater than the one I said before. At the age of about 13 or 14, this would continue on. I mean, Izuku, he would be famous. Every single hero, or most heroes that run these training camps, smaller heroes of course, would know exactly who he is. Izuku was someone that would dominate all the training, from robots to fighting heroes. It didn't matter. He would bring them to the one and only Suplex City. And he would make sure all of them know who's truly the best, and make sure that all of them acknowledge him. He makes sure that they all know who is truly the alpha and the big dog in front of them all. He is going to be the future #1 hero, and frankly, in his books, he's already that specifically. But of course, he still has to go through some schooling. Kind of lame, but he still does. But really, he just kind of trucked through school. He wasn't the best student, but he wasn't the worst student. Bakugo kind of did a ton of the studying, helping him out, because Bakugo is extremely smart. Even though Bakugo does want to be his own hero, he's kind of been put into this weird spotlight, and frankly, oddly enough, a weird fear of Izuku. I mean, who wouldn't fear Izuku if he will, you know, at any moment toss you off a building by F5ing you? But that's beyond the point. Nobody wants to go to Suplex City. So Bakugo, you know, he's pretty tame around Izuku, and they finish up school together. The very last day of school, the teacher introduces this whole, like, oh, we got to find out what your job is or what you're going to do. This career aptitude test. But, of course, he throws all the papers and every one of the papers into the sky. He says they all want to go the hero route, and it's pretty obvious. So he's going to not worry about that. And he hopes that all of them could be heroes. And Izuku, and also Bakugo, of course, would be ones going for UA. And Izuku would definitely make this clear that they are going to UA together. And he's pretty excited about it. I mean, he knows Bakugo will get in. He likes denying it, but Bakugo is strong enough to, you know, get past these losers that he's going to have to get through. But himself, he's going to score so many points on that entrance exam, it's going to be absolutely ridiculous. He looks at Bakugo and tells him that he's going to help him study for that entrance exam test because he wants to ace that shit. And Bakugo kind of like trembles a little bit, but then shakes his head yes. And everybody starts laughing, but Izuku slams his hand on the desk, breaking it in half, saying that they better stop laughing or else. And he points at his shirt as Bakugo reads it to himself, Suplex City. Of course, everyone just shuts up because they don't want to go to Suplex City, so they all just kind of sit in silence until the very end of the day. Izuku and Bakugo would go their separate ways, and Izuku would tell him that they're going to be training together very, very soon. He wants to make sure not only Bakugo is ready, but he's ready as well, and also, he is his advocate, so he's going to have to introduce him for the entrance exam. They'll figure it out. They'll have to tell these people that it needs to happen this way. And if anything, he'll get a little recording. You know, maybe a little recorder for everyone to hear the beautiful introduction of the Beast Incarnate, the ultimate beast, Izuku Midoriya. After some more time would pass, Izuku would leave Bakugo to his devices as he heads home. Izuku continues to write in his journal just different wrestling moves he could be utilizing and so on and so forth. But as he goes under this bridge, he actually hears something. He's not exactly sure what this is, but as he hears it, well, he turns around and the manhole cover behind him would burst open. The manhole cover would out of nowhere just burst, and a giant sludge-like villain would come out of it. Izuku would be kind of taken back, but he would stand there and be looking around, and the sludge villain would immediately say that he needs his body. Izuku would shake his head and say that that is the worst worst line he's ever heard in his life. And just because he can't take his ass to Suplex City doesn't mean that the sludge villain isn't about to get a beating. And the sludge villain would say that it's not like the kid can do anything. Look at him. There's just no way. The sludge villain charges at him, saying that he's going to take his body and he's going to utilize it for his own ordeals. And as he charges at him, Izuku would charge right back, and he would immediately shoulder tackle into the sludge villain. The sludge villain would think that the kid is an idiot, but the shoulder tackle would, for some reason, kind of mildly solidify the sludge villain and would even kind of bounce him back just a little bit. But Izuku would just go straight through him. He wouldn't actually be stuck on one side. Going straight through him, he would run back and he would bounce off the wall as he shoulder tackles him over and over again. Eventually, the sludge villain is on the ground, and as his little eyeballs look toward the ceiling, Izuku would put up one hand. He would wave his hand in front of his face and say, "You can't see me," as he gives the sludge villain a 5-knuckle shuffle. As he does this, the sludge villain would be completely and utterly destroyed. The 5-knuckle shuffle more or less destroyed him into multiple pieces, and as Izuku stands over him and tells him that he stood no chance in the first place, well, the one and only All Might would come out of the sewer as well. All Might would come out of nowhere, and he would immediately say that the sludge villain, he won't get away, but for some reason, the sludge villain's already down for the count. Izuku would see All Might and would be excited. The first time he's actually excited about seeing another hero. Izuku would say that he's a big fan, and he did the job that he needed to do for All Might, so here's a couple bottles. He can clean this up himself. All Might says that he likes his swagger. I mean, it reminds him of a younger version of himself, in which Izuku says that, well, he'll soon find out that he's far better than a younger version than All Might's, and even better than the version of All Might's he's looking at now. All Might smirks a little bit and says that if he's strong enough to defeat the sludge villain, and it seems like without even breaking a sweat, there's no doubt in his mind that there are levels to what Izuku can truly do. He would capture the sludge villain entirely and put him in the bottles. As he does this, he would question Izuku. "So, what quirk do you have, kid?" Izuku would explain that his quirk is a wrestling quirk. As if he's ever heard of WWE, maybe the Japan wrestling scene, and it's all based around that. And he's confused to hear this, but when he breaks it down, he thinks that this is pretty OP, that this might be pretty strong. He says that he assumes he's trying out for UA, and of course Izuku would say he is. Of course he is. And All Might would say that if he can beat someone like the sludge villain, he'll have no trouble going through the entrance exam. But how about this? They do some training. Him, Izuku, they'll get some training in, and he'll train the kid, and he'll have his recommendation, in which Izuku kind of shakes his head and says he'll take the training, but he needs to add their advocate, or his advocate, Katsuki Bakugo. And he says that's the last time he'll say his name in that way, but his advocate, he's pretty strong, but he'll be mostly working with Izuku himself. And All Might would be confused. What do you mean by advocate? And Izuku says that he doesn't speak for himself that often, but since he's talking to the one and only All Might, he is speaking. All Might would kind of laugh at this and think that this kid, he has a pretty big ego, but I mean, if he's as good as he says he is, I mean, it makes sense. All Might would then have the villain strapped to his legs, and he would be good to go. All Might would tell Izuku to meet him at Dagobah Beach, and that they'll be working together very, very soon. Izuku agrees and says that he'll be there with his advocates, and that they'll get some training in. Some more time would pass, and Izuku would call Bakugo, telling him to meet him at Dagobah Beach in about 2 hours. He would ask why, but Izuku would already hung up. As he leaves for the beach to get there a little bit earlier, eventually Bakugo would arrive, and All Might would as well. Bakugo would be confused. How did he even do this? What kind of strings did he pull? But eventually it would be explained that All Might actually ran into him after Izuku beat a villain, and a very lethal villain at that. But Bakugo would be excited. Now he gets to train with the one and only All Might. Now this is something that he was looking forward to. All Might would watch as the two would train, and they would work together, train together. Izuku would even slightly spar All Might, but All Might would obviously kind of try to take it easy on him. But it would be obvious that Izuku's strength is all involved in a multitude of ways. Not only in the fact of the people cheering for him, his moves, but also just whatever type of role he's portraying. Right now, it seems like he's more of a heel, someone that is more deemed as someone that nobody would necessarily cheer on. But he feeds off the boos just as much as he feeds off the cheers. So when he fights All Might and he gets him up for an F5, All Might would yield. All Might would say that it's over, he doesn't need to go any longer. He would put All Might down, and All Might would claim that he was holding back, but it's obvious to All Might that, well, this kid is on a brand new level, and that this kid was about to put him down. And that's all fine and dandy for Izuku. Izuku says that he knows his limitations, he knows how strong he is, and he knows what he's capable of, and he can get even stronger. But they need someone like All Might, at least right now, until Izuku can legally take over his role. All Might would smirk at this, thinking that this kid really could become the next version of him, if not extremely better than him. But does he even need his quirk? Maybe they should give it to someone else like Mirio. But that's something he'll think about later on. They continue training more and more, and he even has thoughts of the idea of maybe giving Bakugo one for all. But the issue with that is it seems like Bakugo is kind of on the back burner, or a little sidekick to Izuku. I mean, like Izuku said, he is the advocate. So he decides to hold off on that idea and probably deal with a more confirmed version of himself, or a more confirmed person that could use one for all. With all that said, the training would be over, 10 months would pass, and Izuku wouldn't even have to actually take the quirk, or the UA entrance exam, and it's actually, he's just allowed in entirely. He doesn't have to even worry about it. He watches as more or less everything goes on. He actually watches the UA entrance exam, watching Bakugo, his advocate, absolutely obliterate everything. More and more. Bakugo seems to be on a different level right now, but obviously Izuku is not even close. He's so much above him, but he still compliments Bakugo, at least without him knowing, and All Might stands next to him as Izuku stands there with his hands behind his back. And All Might asks why he's doing that, doesn't it feel uncomfortable? But Izuku says it's just kind of one of the poses he takes on. He has to immerse himself in this world. All Might doesn't understand. The more immersed Izuku is, the more he truly believes he is a wrestler and that this is his life, is the more he's able to actually obtain true strength. And this, he is the ring general. And All Might is confused as hell, and everyone else kind of laughs at this, but as Izuku turns around, they stop laughing. They shut up real quick, because it's obvious that the aura around Izuku is terrifying. And frankly, that makes sense. And of course, as he walks out, everyone just stares at him, and they ask All Might who was he and who is he, and he says that he's Izuku Midoriya. And as Izuku Midoriya walks out, you can hear a faded "yeah" in the background, as if Izuku's responding out of pure instinct as he heard his name spoken in a certain way. And this would kind of make everyone laugh once again, but they would all stop. It's as if Izuku's still here, still terrifying them. The idea that he could be around the corner, that he could destroy them out of nowhere. And this would all be implanted in their brains. Even teachers, some teachers there. Aizawa not really included in this, because Aizawa is an absolute maniac and probably drunk on the job the mass majority of the time. But of course, Izuku wouldn't terrify him to a certain extent. But everyone knows that this might be basically the protege of All Might, at least to a large extent. And after it's all said and done, Izuku meets up with Bakugo one last time, as he puts his own hands behind his back, as Bakugo does the same. He tells Bakugo that he did a pretty good job. Seems like he got number 1. And Bakugo asks how he knows that, but Izuku says that he just does. They walk out and they leave. And Izuku says that that's all that needs to be done and that's all that needs to be said. It's now time for them to prepare for their arrival to their home ground, their stomping ground, their territory. Because everybody in UA High School and everybody in Hero Society will acknowledge him. Izuku and Bakugo would continue their training until their letters would arrive. Izuku, of course, already knows he's in. Bakugo eventually getting that letter. And a couple days before going into UA, they know that they have to get some things done. And they know that training, getting prepared, and everything else is good. And all of that is said and done. Izuku would arrive at UA for the first time with Katsuki Bakugo. And as he walks into the classroom, everybody kind of says hi. They try to be friendly and so on. But of course, Bakugo would tell them all to be quiet, to not talk to the beast incarnate. You must talk to the advocate. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Katsuki Bakugo, the advocate for the beast incarnate, the WWE champion, Izuku Midoriya. And everybody would stand there and they would think, what the hell is wrong with these people? What's going on? And some of them would even begin to laugh, but Izuku would stare at the people who begin laughing and they immediately shut up. Obviously, they're completely terrified. He just put the fear of God in them. On top of that, though, some girls think that Izuku is hot as hell. I mean, come on, my boy's shredded. He's ripped. They're all like fawning over him as if he's some celebrity. And to an extent, he basically is. He is the definition of the peak alpha man in society. That's what Izuku Midoriya is. That's what the true beast incarnate is. Izuku would sit down and he would prepare and he would just wait for the teacher to finally arrive. All he can think about currently is going on with whatever is going to happen. He wants to go on with true hero training. He wants to suplex some people. He wants to do some crazy things. But as he's waiting, finally, Aizawa would arrive. Aizawa would say that everybody needs to follow him and go outside, get on their PE uniforms or whatever they want to wear that is comfortable. Izuku would walk outside with the belt strapped around his waist, his WWE belt. And Aizawa would say, doesn't he want to take that off? But Izuku shakes his head that the belt stays on. The belt will always stay on. And after everyone is all ready to go and everyone is ready for their now quirk assessment, they learn what it will entail. It starts with throwing a ball, and frankly, Izuku stands there waiting, and Bakugo is actually called up first. He is technically the one that got number 1 in the quirk in the UA entrance exam, so it does make sense that he would go up first. But Bakugo would step up, but then stop and say that he actually should not go up. That the tribal chief, the beast incarnate, and the one himself should go up first. Izuku Midoriya. And Aizawa would tell the kid to more or less stop fucking hyping up this kid right here. Stop making him seem like he's so good. And Izuku would stand up and walk forward and say that if he doesn't think he's so good, then maybe they should spar. Maybe this little quirk assessment isn't the right way to see what they're capable of. And Aizawa would look at him and say, give him 5 minutes. And he says after all of these kids are done with their quirk assessment, they'll spar a little bit. How about that? And Izuku says that let's put some stakes on it. How about it? If he loses, if Izuku loses, that he could be expelled. And if Aizawa doesn't want to do that, then he'll do whatever he wants in terms of he could grade papers for him. He could make sure and run classes for him. He doesn't care. He'll do whatever it needs to be done. Aizawa says that sounds good. If he does lose, he's expelled. But, on the off chance he somehow wins, let's see. He doesn't have to do any work. Not for the entire year. Aizawa would think that he's that confident that there's no way and that he would lose. But during this quirk assessment, let's just say All Might would try to tell Aizawa that this is not the best idea. This kid, he's on a different level. Of course, though, Aizawa would think that this is a bit of an understatement. I mean, not much information, though, is told to Aizawa. All Might just says that he's really strong. He doesn't say that, well, Izuku was on the bridge of defeating him with one F5. But after the quirk assessment is all filled out, all done, everybody finishes up, it's now time for the spar between Shota Aizawa and Izuku Midoriya. And just as Aizawa thinks this is going to be a normal spar, Izuku would watch as the one and only Katsuki Bakugo would put a radio player out or a boombox, and as he clicks it, the music begins to play. Obviously, I can't play the music because, you know, that's copyright, but yeah. So he walks out to the Beast Incarnate music as the music plays louder and louder. And everybody stands there in complete shock. It's as if this guy's straight up a movie character, as if he is the main character. He really thinks he's the main protagonist, and yeah, he kind of is. He would walk out, and as he steps up to the little ledge where they're gonna be sparring at, he jumps up and slams his feet, and out of nowhere, fire would come ripping out of the ground and would begin to kind of like act as pyrotechnics. And let's just say Aizawa is confused as hell. Izuku would tell him that this is already over, and Aizawa asks if he's ready, but Izuku puts one finger up as he watches as Katsuki Bakugo introduces him as the reigning, defending, undisputed WWE champion, Izuku Midoriya. And as the fight would immediately lift off, let's just say Aizawa didn't know what he was getting into, because immediately Izuku would get a hold of his back and immediately bring him to Suplex City. And Aizawa would begin getting flipped on his back over and over again. Excuse me, and Bakugo would begin telling everybody around to start chanting Suplex City, Suplex City. And as they chant that, the suplexes begin to get harder, faster, stronger. And Aizawa begins to get tossed around like an absolute ragdoll. And Izuku would watch as Aizawa struggles to his feet. Aizawa trying to cancel his quirk, but it's not that simple. His quirk doesn't work like that. He would get Aizawa up for an F5, and Izuku would scream toward the crowd as he would lift him up and throw him across his body, basically. And he would land the F5. Izuku would pin Aizawa as Bakugo would run in and give a 3 count. 1, 2, 3. And Izuku's music would play once again. You know the music. If you're a real fan of WWE, you know the music. So the music would play, and Aizawa would be hurting. Honestly, super bad. But it was kind of odd. It was right after that, Aizawa would stop hurting. It was as if Izuku decided to just, you know, let the rules apply to Aizawa. It's as if the fakeness and kind of the selling version of it, he can actually control the fact if it hurts that badly or not. Izuku, yes, the suplexes would hurt no matter what, but the aftermath, the true pain that the viewer sees isn't actually there if he so chooses it to be so. It's kind of like pulling your punches. But if he decides to fight a villain, he can decide not to pull his punches at all. He can make it so that the pain lasts for as long as if he did it normally on concrete. But this time around, Aizawa gets a couple bruises and feels a good bit sore, but he's able to stand up and he's able to kind of brush it off to a certain extent. Aizawa says that a deal's a deal, and he won't have to do any work, but it's all good. He assumes that the kid is pretty smart, and he'll make his little advocate over there help him with his work anyways, in terms of, well, making sure that he's not a complete idiot by the time he finishes school in UA. Izuku kind of smirks and nods and says that it seems as if he truly is the alpha male of their species, and not even a pro hero like Eraserhead can take him down. He looks at Eraserhead though and says, don't worry, his ego is not going to let him put his guard down. He's just here for dominance. He's here to wreck everybody and leave. And Aizawa would kind of like this idea. He would nod his head and say that he kind of likes the kid. He's pretty interesting. With all that said though, the first day of UA is finally over, and Izuku is ready for the very next. Because the very next, they're going to have All Might as their trainer, or as their kind of show. He's going to show them some hero training, but this hero training is going to be a little bit different, because as Izuku always is, and as he always does, he might be challenging some more people, and maybe even his entire class, to a, you could say, 20 versus 1 handicap. Izuku Midoriya, the Beast incarnate. He's ready to take on whatever is to come, and that's the whole point in this next training session, when All Might greets them all and tells them they're doing heroes versus villains. But Katsuki Bakugo would introduce the Beast incarnate, Izuku Midoriya, once again, saying that he'll take on every single person right now. In which All Might is confused, why would he want to do that? But eventually, some convincing would go on, and Izuku would take on every single person in Class 1A. And of course, as Bakugo watches on, All Might pats Bakugo's shoulder and says he has to join in as well, in which Izuku watches Bakugo walk over to the other group, and he smirks, thinking that he's going to take every last person to Suplex City. All Might would tell them all that they better have some good luck, because this is going to be hell itself. In which they're all confused, but immediately when the fight starts, it's obvious why All Might says this, because Izuku Midoriya becomes out swinging. Clothesline after clothesline, lariat after lariat. Izuku picks up one, F5s one, picks up another, does an attitude adjustment. He sets one up for a spear, spears another, and it seems like there's multiple already on the ground, on the floor, gasping for air. Of course, Izuku is standing there, and he does his primal roar as he's ready to continue the beating. Everybody's completely thrown off guard. No way he's this fast. How is he this fast? And All Might then says that this could get far worse if he just, decides to do this. Turning on some sort of radio / record type of player, it's as if audio's already outputted on it, and as the audio turns on, it begins to chant. It begins to chant, Suplex City, Suplex City. And as it does, Izuku would charge forward, suplex after suplex after suplex, and he would absolutely demolish every single person there. Everybody would be laying there hurting with ribs and other things cracked, broken, and they would be gasping for air. But soon after defeat began ringing out, and Izuku Midoriya stands on top as he points at his WWE belt, All Might would call the training off, and everybody's little or minor or major injuries turn into really minor ones, being that only minor bruises on their ribs and a little bit of soreness. Everybody's completely shocked, as if the beating they just went through didn't even happen. But again, they do remember what was kind of talked about before, that Izuku's quirk works in a way that if he doesn't want them to be permanently hurt, they won't be. Because wrestling is on the contrary partially fake. It is scripted for entertainment. Of course, a lot of things do hurt, but with Izuku's overwhelming power, he's allowed to manipulate it in a way that he could turn everything into minor injuries, barring that of death, of course. If someone gets severely injured, as in like breaks their neck or something like that, then it's going to be a little bit more difficult in terms of that sort of change in reality. But in terms of just severe, or not super severe, but like, you know, cracked ribs, broken arm, he could more or less change that to just bruises or soreness. With all that said, though, the training would then end, but All Might would tell all of them that they could get their own training all in together later today, when he's going to host a bit of a training session without Izuku. Like, he then admits that he knew Izuku would do this, and he knew that Izuku would absolutely dominate every last one of them. At the end of the day, he did train with All Might himself, and so did Bakugo. But they ask how Bakugo didn't get far ahead, but he says that Izuku is in a field of his own, that he truly has a quirk that is perfect for him, and on top of that, has done his due diligence in terms of getting stronger and better and faster. And everybody does think about that. Like, they didn't really train that much with their quirks. Maybe if they did, they could have been like Izuku. But even All Might says that you could have trained as much as possible. And frankly, you probably still wouldn't be on the level that Izuku is currently at. All Might would then say that doesn't matter right now. It's time for them to get better and get faster and get stronger all together. But Izuku is sent off for the rest of the day, and eventually it would become to the very next day, and everybody comes to class pretty tired. But Aizawa would tell everybody that they have pretty good news. They're going to actually be doing some rescue training, in which, surprisingly enough, this would excite Izuku. Izuku would be happy to hear this, because he actually wants to try out some new types of rescue facility type things, because he's always about brute force. I mean, he knows that part of being a hero is rescuing people, and he does idolize All Might to a certain extent. So this would be good for him, and this is good for him for something that he wants to learn on his own as well. So when Aizawa takes everybody to the USJ, he's excited to see what's to come, and he's excited to see what's going on. But quickly he would realize that his little happiness for wanting to learn more about rescue training would come to a halt, because when they're greeting Pro Hero 13 and everybody's talking about how cool this is going to be, villains begin to arrive, and as these villains arrive, Izuku's anger would fluctuate massively, and he would look at Aizawa saying that those are no fake villains, huh? And Aizawa nods his head, and Izuku is pissed, because Izuku wanted to learn more about rescue training, wanted to do some rescuing, maybe test his limits at lifting up buildings and stuff, but now he can't. Now they have to deal with these stupid ass villains. Izuku would be so mad that when Aizawa dives in to fight, Izuku would dive in as well, charging in and beginning to land clothesline after clothesline after clothesline on every single one of the villains there, and every clothesline would knock every single one of them out. Aizawa would kind of be smirking as they're fighting, because he can tell that Izuku not only is doing most of the work, but at the same time, he's just proud of the fact that this kid takes this thing very seriously. And frankly, not even as seriously as Aizawa has seen just yet. Because once Izuku sees the main culprit of the reason why they're all here, Izuku would be so pissed that he would tell everybody that he demands darkness, and that he demands one thing. He points at Shigaraki and he tells him he'll see him in a Hell in a Cell. And as the lights would go dim and the lights would go out entirely, even everybody would say this is odd. I mean, it's daylight outside and there's windows, but it's like the sun has now turned off for Izuku. But as they all think this is some party trick, no, it's not. Lightning strikes and a gong can be heard. Dong, dong, and everybody is confused. What the hell is going on? And Izuku would begin walking out holding an urn, and the one and only Katsuki Bakugo would introduce not Izuku Midoriya, the beast incarnate, but Izuku Midoriya, the Undertaker. Izuku would walk out, and Shigaraki, the Nomu, and even Kurogiri can be seen stuck in a giant cell, and they're confused. What's going on? What's happening? As all the lights turn off once again, Izuku would disappear, no longer in front of anybody. He's actually not in sight. But then the lights would turn off once again, and then turn back on. Bright lights shining everywhere, and Izuku would appear in the ring. Different outfit and all, but the title wrapped around his waist, and his eyes pure white. Izuku would immediately run at the Nomu as the Nomu tries to fight Izuku off, but Izuku would pick him up and bring him for his last ride, pile driving him right into the canvas, sending him underneath as fire would erupt from underneath the stage itself. Izuku would look at Shigaraki charging forward, and Shigaraki tries to touch him, but he can't, as he able to kite the hands of Shigaraki and put him in a choke slam. Immediately, Shigaraki feels that his bones, all his bones feel like they're cracking, breaking, and he can't move. Kurogiri tries to portal him out of there, but as Kurogiri opens a portal, Izuku reaches through the portal, immediately grabbing Kurogiri and grabbing his metal body, and begins to slam him on the ground over and over and over again, completely putting him out of commission as he throws Kurogiri, breaking the Hell in Cell, throwing him out of the ring. And Izuku would follow up, picking up Shigaraki one last time and hitting him with a tombstone pile driver. He would put his hands over his chest and tell him to rest in peace. As a count of 3 would sing off, and Shigaraki and the Nomu would lay there completely unable to move. And, well, obviously the Nomu's underneath the ring, but after the ring and the lights would turn off and it would come back up, everything would be cleared out, villains all over the ground, but all of them unconscious entirely. Izuku would appear once again by everybody standing all beside them, and everybody would be completely shocked. Aizawa gets all the villains in cuffs, including Shigaraki, including Kurogiri, and luckily the other heroes would eventually arrive to help out, including All Might. But All Might would see the carnage, and he knows exactly who did this. It was the one and only, and of course Katsuki Bakugo would intervene. He would say, Izuku Midoriya, saying that the reigning, defending, undisputed WWE champion is the winner. And everybody stands up and cheers, and Izuku can feel the power in the cheers itself, as if he's, you know, obviously extremely powered and empowered by the fact that everybody is enjoying the performance. But this ain't no performance. All of the bodies on the ground are truly hurt. Shigaraki with multiple broken ribs, broken arms, Kurogiri completely out of commission, the Nomu beaten so bad that shock absorption didn't even matter in the first place. And frankly, that's all it was. Everybody realizes though that Izuku has like this minor bit of reality warping. It's not necessarily reality warping, but if enough people believe in what he's doing, if enough people truly think that he's powerful enough and that he's strong, well, let's just say that's exactly what Izuku can portray, and that's exactly what Izuku can do. He can turn things into Hell in a Cell, can turn things into an environment that only he would thrive in. Defeating Shigaraki, defeating everybody there. The villains are captured, and that's one thing that they no longer have to worry about. Shigaraki, Kurogiri, and many others now captive, all for one, is sitting there, wondering how and what he should do next. He didn't plan for someone like this. He didn't plan for this supposed person to be able to walk through and defeat everybody. Initially, he thinks it's All Might. He really does. But then he would reconsider that there's no way that it was All Might. All Might was too hurt. It must have been a brand new student, maybe another hero he didn't know about. He's not sure, but damn sure he'll find out. And Izuku Midoriya, well, he'll want him to find out, because that is the type of person Izuku is. With all that said though, Izuku would now look forward to the very next part of his journey, and that is the UA Sports Festival. And the UA Sports Festival is something that he'll be excited about tenfold, because that's another audience and a broadcast that he can get everybody to not only enjoy the entertainment, but on top of that, give him even more strength and power, because everybody there will believe. And you could believe that, because he's going to wreck everybody and leave. After some time, it would finally be, well, obviously time for the UA Sports Festival. Of course, they have to wait on it a little bit because there was a whole, attack on the USJ thing. But now they're all ready for the next part, of UA. Everybody is ready, set up, and everybody is excited for this sports festival. But the person that does the speech would surprise everybody, being that of Katsuki Bakugo. Izuku would stand there, as Bakugo would wonder if he should bring up Izuku. I mean, like, Izuku deserves it the most, right? But, of course, Izuku would just stand there. He wouldn't say a word. And eventually, one word would come out of Izuku's mouth, and that would be, go. He says that in his own way, saying that he doesn't care. He could take this glory for now, but trust me, that he's going to get the glory back. Bakugo would give his speech and would say with confidence that he's going to win, but of course, maybe he doesn't even believe that, and to a hard extent, he really doesn't. But nonetheless, Izuku is ready for the first portion of the UA Sports Festival, being that of the obstacle course race. And this is simple, very simple. He runs through without even a hitch, and he's easily able to crush and absolutely trip up and throw the robots that are in his way initially. But he does fall behind in some of the speed portions of things in terms of traveling across long ropes and ditches and stuff like that. But he is able to brute force his way through the mine section of the obstacle course race because of how strong he is and how durable he is. And he's able to just squeak out a second place advancement. It seems like Bakugo was actually able to catch up and pass him up. But of course, that really wouldn't matter to Izuku. This isn't even his ballpark. And when he learns of the cavalry battle, it might not be his ballpark, but everybody around him wouldn't want to even come close to him. So everybody that joined his team would just automatically win. Some people were honestly too scared to join his team because of just his presence alone. But of course, the people like Ochaku Uraka, the people that felt comfortable enough, right? Tokiyami, Meihatsume, all of them would easily pass. And the reason for that is because, like I said, nobody would even want to come near Izuku. I mean, he is not only terrifying, but they heard the rumors of him absolutely dominating at the USJ, defeating and destroying every last person there. So there ain't no way they're going near that guy. And that's just the fact of it. And that's probably a good idea, because I wouldn't want to go near him either. So the cavalry battle will be smooth sailing for him and his team. He would pass on through, wouldn't really worry about much, and they would go straight to the 1v1s. The 1v1s on the other hand would obviously lean in Izuku's favor, but would be exciting for Izuku. The first matchup would be against Satoshi Shinso, and this matchup would all start with Izuku being introduced by the one and only Katsuki Bakugo. My name is Katsuki Bakugo. You may know me as the #1 student from the UA entrance exam, but I am also the advocate for the reigning, defending, undisputed WWE champion, Izuku Midoriya. As he says all this, everyone stands there in complete, utter awe as Izuku comes out to his beast incarnate music, and everybody hears the wow, bum, bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, bum. And as everyone hears it, you can feel the stadium beginning to pump up as they watch Izuku walk out. It's as if there's like this feeling all around that everybody knows something crazy is about to happen. Shinso stands there, staring as Izuku walks out. As he steps onto the stage, jumping on in his vintage fashion, immediately fire would become raising out of the stage, and Shinso wouldn't even know what to say. This is absolutely terrifying. Izuku would be ready to go, as Shinso would begin talking smack, but Izuku, in his beast incarnate way, wouldn't even be saying a word. all he can think about is destruction. All he can think about is wrecking everybody and leaving. And even if Shinso puts him under his brainwash, who says the crowd won't draw him directly out of it? And as Bakugo would sit back in the crowd, he would smirk at everybody in Class 1A and begin a chant once again. Suplex City, do 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 do, Suplex City. Of course, not many people would like Shinso because of the fact that he kind of brainwashed a bunch of people to get the way he to get what he wanted. So once the whole crowd was saying Suplex City, it was over. The furthest thing from over. He began suplexing after suplex Shinso, as it would get kind of ugly until Shinso was thrown out of the ring, and Izuku would stare at everybody and give his primal roar out, and everybody would chant for Izuku. Everyone saying, Izuku Midoriya, do 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 do. As everyone chants his name, chanting Midoriya, chanting Izuku, chanting the Beast Incarnate, anything you can think of, everybody is excited. And this just makes Izuku even stronger. But there's one person watching. All for one. He's watching this and he's kind of trembling. He's shaking just a little bit. How? How does someone like him, how does someone like this even exist? He can't believe it. He can't even bring his mind, his being to know that someone like this exists. Because it doesn't make sense. But as it cuts back to Izuku, Izuku's walking through the halls, and he's about to come out of his waiting room, and he's donning a brand new persona, someone different. I mean, if y'all know, y'all know. You will know by the reference here. Izuku goes to walk out, and he opens his door from his dressing room, and he has security guards surrounding him. And music begins to play, something simple, but it seems like it's absolutely terrifying. And the audience itself is getting a weird feeling to chant, Goldberg, Goldberg, as he's walking out with his security guards for his next match against Todoroki. Well, someone stops him. That's Endeavor. Of course, Izuku would look at him weirdly, and immediately someone else would approach him, and that would be Bakugo once again, saying that if he wants to speak with Izuku, he needs to speak with him because he is the advocate for the one and only, the reigning, defending WWE champion, Izuku Midoriya. Of course, Endeavor would then threaten Bakugo, but as he does this, Izuku would walk over to Endeavor and tell him to shut his mouth, or he's next. And he better watch out, because he doesn't want to be next. Of course, this would terrify Endeavor, send chills down his spine, but he wouldn't understand why. He's just a kid. Why is he scared of him? And Izuku would bring over Bakugo and put him behind him and would say to never threaten his advocate ever again, or he might even take him to Suplex City. He walks out as the music continues to play and chants ring through, Goldberg, Goldberg. And all the pyrotechnics can be seen. Everything going crazy, the mist, and he immediately would breathe out all of this mist and this like sparkly yellow color, and it's crazy. Everyone is chanting like crazy, and Todoroki just stands there. He's standing there dormant, serious, but at the same time he's terrified at what he's currently watching. Izuku would get to the stage, and when the fight would begin, Todoroki would unleash as much as possible, ice after ice, but it would be broken through easily by Izuku by just him shoulder tackling the icebergs that he's being created, and Izuku would easily break through. As he breaks through though, well, he would begin to tell Todoroki, why the hell is he not using his full strength? I mean, this is boring. He sucks. And he would look at the crowd and be like, hey everybody, Todoroki sucks. Everyone would say, you suck. You suck. And everybody would begin chanting this, and Todoroki would tell them to shut up. And Izuku would say that if he wants to really have a chance, or I mean even a minor one, you gotta turn up the heat just a little bit. Todoroki wouldn't listen of it, but as he can see that Izuku is breaking through everything, and Izuku tells him that if he doesn't use his full power, that he ain't going to recover him. He's going to destroy every bone in his body. What is he so afraid of? That's his quirk. Stop being an idiot. Izuku would run forward, ready to lariat him, but a blast of fire would then scorch Izuku, and Izuku would smirk. Finally! Izuku would immediately charge right back at Todoroki through the fire and through the ice and spear him. Todoroki would be on the ground and he would be screaming in pain, he'd be hurting, and eventually Izuku would get him up for the very last move, his vintage jackhammer, slamming him to the ground as he holds him up for a good 15 seconds and he pins him. 1, 2, 3, and it's over. Just like that. Of course, Izuku would get chants of Izuku, and Midoriya, and many other things. And as he continues his reign of dominance throughout the UA Sports Festival, he'd fight Tenya Ida, defeating him easily as well. And even starring out brand new personas as he walks out this time as the Tribal Chief. The true one, the true only, as he tells the crowd to acknowledge him. As he spears, Superman punches, spears again, defeating Tenya Ida and sending him off to wherever he needs to go next. Izuku Midoriya is looking forward to the finals, and the finals would be against Katsuki Bakugo. Izuku would stand there, no advocate by himself, but this time he would take on a brand new persona, a persona that fits the chance of everybody that is loving him right now, turning from heel to face as he waves a hand in front of his face saying, "You can't see me," becoming the persona of the one and only John Cena. Everybody would begin chanting, "Cena sucks, Cena sucks," and everybody would get ready as the John Cena version of Izuku Midoriya would begin absolutely obliterating Katsuki Bakugo. Bakugo would try to fight back, use his explosions at full power, and don't get me wrong, Bakugo is strong here. He's been training with Izuku, preparing for this, but there is no chance that he can beat him. He can only show out as much as possible. Izuku would begin to shoulder tackle, eventually picking him up and putting him on the ground for his vintage 5-knuckle shuffle. He lands the 5-knuckle shuffle and gets ready for the FU, or New Age people know it as the attitude adjustment, landing it, pinning him, but this time Bakugo at a 2 count kicks out. Izuku is shocked. He can't believe it. How did he kick out? There's no way. Izuku could hear the chants of Bakugo ring out as he kicks out, and anger would flood through him, changing his persona once again back to a heel. He would begin pounding the ground, pounding over and over, and he begins to punch his fist into the ground as well as it makes dents in that said ground. As Bakugo stands up, Izuku hits him with the RKO. Everybody's standing there. No way. He can't. No. 1, 2, 3. Katsuki Bakugo has been defeated. Just like that, Izuku Midoriya reigns supreme at the UA Sports Festival, but he has a lot to look forward to in the near future. The UA Sports Festival may be over, and everything may have gone his way, but all he can think about are the new challenges that are ahead of him, and all he can think about is what is to come. And the next thing to come is the internships. He looks forward to the internships because when he gets to school the following week, he would have a pile of them. Tons and tons and tons and tons of them. He would have plenty to pick from, plenty to choose from. But of course, he would decide on one person and one person only. He would decide on the one and only Sir Night-Eye. Someone that he knows All Might respects. Someone that even he respects all the time. So he'll make sure that he goes with him, and he'll make sure that, well, he shows the utmost respect for Sir Night-Eye himself. And that's what he's excited for. He's going to work with Sir Night-Eye and maybe even Mirio Togata, in which he has a hunch that is the one for all user that All Might decided to choose. Maybe he'll even challenge him. But with that said, that's what's to come, but that will be in part 3. Izuku Midoriya heads off to Sir Night-Eye's agency. He had a lot of choices to more or less choose from, but All Might himself suggested that he would go to Sir Night-Eye's agency because they have a lot of things they want to tell him and a lot of things they want to work with him in terms of just everything. And when he arrives, he's greeted by many people, including who he thinks is the next user of One for All, being that of Mirio Togata. When he meets him though, he kind of introduces himself, and they kind of get into a bit of a talking session about power, strength, and so on. Eventually, they would do a bit of a spar, but during that spar, they wouldn't get too far into it until, well, Sir Night-Eye stops them from doing anything else. He doesn't want the whole building to collapse, and he doesn't think a little patch of grass is good enough for their spar. But with that said, he tells them that he has some business to attend to with both of them, so there's some things they need to get through. He tells them that first off, he is hunting one overhaul, but they haven't gotten really anything so far, and they really won't get anything for a while. But he does tell Izuku this, telling him all about it, about overhaul and so on. So if he does find him, see him, be on just notice, just in case. This guy is wanted extremely badly, and frankly, he's just a danger to everybody. Izuku kind of laughs this off, saying that he's a danger to nobody once he gets his hands on him. But Sir Night-Eye says that this is very serious, and to take it that seriously as well. But after all that is said and done, Sir Night-Eye does set up Izuku with some training, same thing with Mirio, with some various other heroes as well. And Mirio and also Izuku makes quick work of every single one of them. But after a couple of days of training, a phone call would ring through. This phone call would make everybody extremely uneasy, because yes, Izuku would work with one of the greatest heroes ever, being that of Sir Night-Eye, but quickly all of that good experience would come to a halt, especially in terms of what he has to do next, because the phone call is from Aizawa, and he tells them that they have to head back immediately, in which everyone is confused. Like, why does he have to do that? They've only been here for a couple days. And of course, this would set off alarms in all of their heads, but when Izuku would arrive back at UA, they would learn that someone has died. Yes, died in one of their little studies, or in one of their internships, and that person is Tenya Ida. Izuku wasn't there, and frankly, not many other people were there either. So, unfortunately, well, Tenya Ida would fall to the hero killer, and this would put everybody in UA on notice. This was no longer fun and games. This was no longer what they believed it to be, and even Aizawa makes this extremely clear, that this whole hero thing, it might not be for all of them. So if they're not willing to risk their lives, sacrifice themselves, or possibly even die in the feat of battle, then they all need to reevaluate what they're truly doing, reevaluate everything that they're pushing themselves through. And Izuku is unflinching. He tells Aizawa that he's ready for whatever is to come, and he's happy to hear that from Izuku, because he tells him that he'll be a crucial part in whatever's to come in the near future. And a promise is a promise. He said that he wouldn't have to do any work, but this whole final exam isn't qualified for Izuku. Everyone's confused. I mean, they didn't think he was serious about the whole work thing, but he does say that Izuku's, well, power, strength, and the way how far ahead he is at this current moment doesn't make sense for him to even be participating in this. And they're all completely taken back by this. There's just no way. Is he really that much stronger than even pro heroes? In which that would be the truth. And Aizawa would make it clear that he is. He's stronger than most pro heroes, most of them all of them combined. And everybody is shocked, but at the same time, I mean, when they look back at what he's been able to do, what he's capable of, should that really shock you? Should that really surprise you that he's able and capable of doing so much in such a short amount of time, at least to them, in such a short amount of time? Well, not really. But Izuku would wait as he watches everybody goes through their finals and everybody goes through whatever they have to do. And he watches his class more or less take the entire final exam, or at least the practical, in which he watches all of them fight different teachers. And in a way, he kind of thinks that Aizawa made this a punishment for him. He watches all of his classmates fight, and all of his classmates have fun fighting, even though he watches and his delusional self thinks that they're having fun, but a lot of them are being tormented by the fact that these teachers are way stronger than them. But to him, he looks at it and thinks they're having fun, that he can't have fun with them. He can't bring every single teacher right there to Suplex City. He's disappointed, but it's okay. He's heard about what's coming next, so he should be able to get plenty of training in very, very soon. And during that, or where that would go, would be the forest training camp. After everyone is said and everyone is done and the whole final exam is said and done, they all head off to the forest training camp. The Wild Wild Pussycats would be waiting for them, and they would begin their training. It would all start first with throwing them off a mountain. But Izuku would be pretty excited about this. He would easily land on his feet, thinking that these giant rock monsters are nothing because he brings them to Suplex City. He suplexes one after another, and he's just running through the forest having fun, drop kicking and super kicking every single person that he sees. Even taps into a new version of himself where he absolutely hits one of them with the sweet chin music, and some amazing music begins to play. Something about being a sexy boy. Yeah, something like that. But that's beyond the point. He continues through the forest, helping his class get through it pretty easily, and frankly, he does most of the work. But he does leave a couple monsters here and there so they can get some training in as well. They would arrive at the training camp, or the camp itself, pretty soon after, and Izuku would be asking what they're going to do next. But Aizawa says that they're actually going to be taking a bit of a break. Nothing crazy. They're going to be eating some food, washing up, and next morning is when they will start, early in the morning. Izuku is excited to do just that. He wants to train, fight with some people. And of course, he would be told that he's actually going to be fighting and working with, mostly working with, one of the stronger or physically stronger people in the Wild Wild Pussycats, and that would be Tiger. He'd be more or less kind of training with him most of the time, and Tiger's kind of scared of him. I mean, look at him. Look at Izuku, and he's heard about what he was able to do to Aizawa, so this is going to be kind of scary. The next morning, when Izuku would arrive, he would immediately begin training with Tiger, and that's what the whole next week is all about. This whole week is just him training with someone pretty strong, but nothing crazy. And Izuku is just having fun, suplexing him, F5ing him, and so on and so forth. He just continues to do that. Lariat after lariat, suplex after suplex, F5 after F5, spear after spear. Whatever you can think of, that's exactly what Izuku is doing. Izuku's having a good bit of time, or a good time throughout this journey and throughout this training session. And Tiger is absolutely beat up. He's pretty uncomfortable. I mean, he even says it, asking if anybody wants to switch out. But of course, nobody wants to switch out and take a suplex from Izuku Midoriya. And that's just the case of it. And that's just the fact of the matter. Nobody wants to take a suplex from him. But what they don't know is that they stopped a completely and utterly terrifying villain. A villain that was going to actually siege this place that they're in right now, a villain that was going to send villains here as they stand, but he didn't come this time around. But he's actually waiting. He's waiting for them to arrive, waiting for them to come back, toward UA, so that he can kill them, waiting so that he can expose everybody and expose UA itself. And he needs a couple things to be ironed out for himself, because he has a plan to not only kill All Might, but to kill that little twerp of as well. And he's talking about Izuku Midoriya, and it's more like Himdoriya, because that's how insanely strong Izuku truly is. And the one and only All For One sets a trap for when they come back, when they're on the bus driving back to UA. Anomu would shatter the bus, breaking it, and it would draw Izuku out. Of course, Aizawa's goal is to get the kids safe. That's the only thing he can think about. That's what he's paid for. But Izuku looks at him and says that he'll handle the big boss. He knows that he's around here somewhere. In which Izuku suplexes the Nomus over and over again until they're basically lifeless, sitting there completely out of commission. And Izuku says that he needs to find All Might, because he's sure that that is what he needs to do. And he's sure that's exactly who All For One will be fighting. Eventually, Izuku would leave, but Bakugo would close follow him, and Aizawa would tell him not to, but he wouldn't listen. Bakugo would be following him because he knows that the advocate for the beast incarnate Izuku Midoriya needs a proper entrance for a fight like this. Izuku would eventually arrive, seeing All Might clash with All For One, but a giant monster would come out of the buildings to not only even the score, but get All For One a massive advantage. Izuku would see this giant monster, and this monster would be Gigantomachia. Izuku, with no hesitation, would tell Bakugo to start up their little plan. Bakugo would hook up everything, get the news stations ready, and the music would begin to play. Wow. Dum, 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 dum. As the music would begin to play, everybody on the screens would begin watching, not only All Might fighting off All For One, but Izuku Midoriya, the reigning, defending, undisputed WWE champion, fighting Gigantomachia. And he's ready. Izuku would charge toward Gigantomachia, everybody chanting his name, everybody chanting louder and louder. As the chants would grow louder, his strength would grow in absolute insanity. All Might is struggling quite a bit, especially with having to deal with Gigantomachia as well as All For One. But Izuku Midoriya is taking over. Suplex City. He suplexes Gigantomachia, a giant monster. He's basically suplexing a mountain. The chants get louder, as all he could hear is Suplex City, Suplex City. All he can hear is the suplex, or the ringing of Suplex City, and he suplexes after suplexes after suplexes, and Gigantomachia is beat up. Izuku gets Gigantomachia up for an F5. Everybody's confused at how he's even doing this. It seems like Izuku is growing in size himself. It seems as if he's just big enough so that he can F5 Gigantomachia. As he does this, Gigantomachia lands on his face, and he's laying there completely out of it. Izuku would go to Gigantomachia and lock in a Kimura, immediately telling him to tap out or he's going to break his arm. As Gigantomachia taps out, bells can be heard ringing, and as the bells ring, Gigantomachia begins to shrink, as if losing has taken away the quirk and all the quirks that built him up, taken away everything, and stripping him down to just a man. Izuku would look toward All For One, as All For One stands there, completely out of it. How did he do that? He'll at least kill All Might before, but as he goes to finish off All Might, and injured All Might at that because of Gigantomachia, Izuku is already there. He grabs the hand of All For One, picking him up, F5ing him as he continues to batter All For One. But then everything stops. All Might's the only one there. All Might stands there and he tells Izuku that it's time for a combo. Izuku nods as All Might winds up one punch, his united states of smash, and Izuku would line up a spear. As he gets ready, All For One would stand up and he could feel his body not allowing him to move, and he stares at the screens above as if everybody is chanting for All Might and Izuku, chanting for both of them, as if it's staggering him, not allowing him to move, not allowing him to run away, nothing. A punch from All Might to the face as a spear lands flush to his gut, landing him on the ground as Izuku pins All For One. 1, 2, 3. Bells would sound off and the defeat of All For One and Gigantomachia would be just fulfilled. They would get arrested, were detained, and all of them would be stripped of their quirks and all of their power. It's as if Izuku has stripped them entirely of what they truly are made of, as if he buried them in this world of wrestling. He buried them. He made them look so bad that they became weak, that the audience would only look at them as weaklings. So they would immediately lose all of their strength and sway, all of their power, and so on. They would take away All For One, take away Gigantomachia, and Izuku Midoriya would be known as someone that has saved Japan, has saved everybody. So, in doing so, there's petitions rolling out, petitions to get this man at least a provisional hero license, something that he can continue working, continue saving, and he could help everybody around. And when that day would come, finally, after days of petitioning, Izuku Midoriya would be introduced by the one and only Katsuki Bakugo. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Katsuki Bakugo, and I am the advocate for the future #1 hero and the reigning, defending, undisputed WWE champion, Izuku Midoriya. And as the chants would go and ring out, as everybody would be excited, Izuku would be one step closer to his goal of being the #1 hero. All Might would go into retirement, and Izuku would look forward to what is to come next. And that is to help Sir Nidai and his agency take down the one and only Overhaul. Shigaraki is done. All For One is out. Gigantomachia is gone. Now, all that needs to be done is the defeat of Overhaul. Once that is finished, and once he solidifies himself as someone who defeated everybody at such a young age, the other villains will hide. What All Might did will just be a speck of what Izuku is capable of. He'll drop all villain activity, all crime rates to 0. And that is his goal. Even if his goal takes him longer than expected, even if there are villains that somehow get the ego, get the confidence to eventually come out and challenge him, he'll be waiting. But the finale would be upon us, and that is for the next part. Izuku Midoriya, the one and only, the WWE champion, is now going to take his talents to the Sir Nidai agency for his work study. But that's not the only thing he's going to do. He's going to help Mirio, Sir Nidai, and many others hunt down the one and only Overhaul. And Overhaul is a threat to every last one of them. A threat to every single person in this society. And Izuku's goal at the end of the day is to make it so every single person is able to basically be safe. Every single person can live happy, live safe, live, well, normally. And that's exactly what he wants and exactly what he's going to do in the future. He's going to make sure every single bit, all the villains are completely null and void. And he's going to start with Overhaul. And Overhaul, and well, the way to find Overhaul is kind of tricky in a large portion of this reality. At the end of the day, Overhaul hasn't been found for a long time. But ironically enough, when Izuku and Mirio go on their first little roam together, their first kind of patrol together, it seems that they bump into a little girl that is soon to be identified and dignified as a connection to Overhaul. And that girl is named Eri. They find Eri running out of an alleyway, and Overhaul is soon to follow. Overhaul stands there and basically tries to play it off like that's his daughter, saying that he's sorry that she just ran off and blah blah blah. She's clumsy and making trouble for heroes. And of course, this would not go well at all. Izuku would not think this is very good at all. Izuku would make it clear, and make it very clear, that he knows who the hell he is. And Mirio would be completely taken back by this, telling him to calm down and that they could have played this so much better. But Izuku doesn't care. Izuku immediately would spear Overhaul, and Overhaul could feel his body aching after that one spear. He would get thrown back toward a wall, and Izuku would begin saying that he is going to rest in peace. And as he says this, a hell and a cell would surround him entirely, and it seems like Overhaul is surrounded like all together, and he's completely shocked by this. What kind of witchcraft is this? He's kind of freaking out. What is going on? And he looks around to see that he's literally in a cell. But not only is he in a cell, there's no way out. He can't even see the outside. He doesn't even know what's happening. And this terrifies him even more. I mean, why wouldn't it? And how wouldn't it? This is insane. Izuku would then set fire to the place, and Overhaul would be terrified. He would try to fight back as he goes to try to grab Izuku, but as he does, the lights would go out. It's as if the sun was going out itself, and then Izuku would appear behind him once again. Appearing behind him immediately as he would turn around, Izuku would grab him and send him on a last ride. Overhaul would try to touch Izuku, but it's as if every move that he locks in, it's as if he's doing it perfectly, he literally cannot touch him. He can't stop him from finishing the move. And as Overhaul lays there completely with shattered ribs and even more damage, Izuku would pick him up one last time and tombstone pile driver him into the ground, and he would put his hands over his chest and tell him to rest in peace. And that's exactly what will happen. He rests in peace. Well, he's not actually dead, but he's out cold entirely, and a count of 3 rings out as Overhaul is defeated. As the cell begins to go down and everything begins to clear out, the light of the sun begins to show. Everybody can see what's happening now. Izuku has defeated Overhaul, and not only that did he not only defeat Overhaul, but he absolutely dominated the fight, and he's now going to be put away in prison for a long time, especially by the people that would eventually arrive and cuff him and bring him away. It seems like every day Izuku is making a difference in what's happening. Every day he's making such a large difference, and he continues to make that difference not only here but also in the classroom and also at UA High School. Leading up to his Class 1A versus Class 1B fight, Izuku would obviously be able to dominate everybody there, but they decide that for good proper training, Izuku will go heads up. So Izuku takes on the entirety of Class 1B. Yeah, the entirety of them. Class 1B. And Class 1B thinks that there's no way. I mean, come on, there's like 20 something of them, maybe more. I mean, there's just no way they're going to be able to beat them, or he's going to be able to beat them. But soon well, let's just say the teacher for Class 1B sends them a bit of a reality check, saying that this kid is that strong and that they better be ready because he has no rules. He can do whatever he wants. And this kind of would terrify them in a way, because they're asking, how does this even matter? Like, what do you mean? They don't get it. And eventually, when the fight would begin, they would see Izuku waiting, but then as they see him, the lights would turn out, and then when the lights turned on, he would immediately RKO 2 people at the same time. And immediately these double RKOs would knock out 2 of them, and Izuku would immediately spear another and F5 another, as he cuts down 1/4 almost of the entirety of Class 1B in a matter of seconds. Vlad King would look at them and shake his head and tell them they better get ready, because there's still more to come. Izuku would grab one of them and suplex, but of course they would be able to get out using their quirks. People like Setsuna Tokage would be pretty hard to take care of because of her quirk, but at the same time, it wouldn't really matter. Even Yui would do combos, throwing giant items at Izuku, but Izuku would smash through them instantly, picking one of them up and doing a running power slam. As he continues to do this, chants begin to ring out for Izuku, and all people can hear is Izuku chanting more and more, or more chants for Izuku, more and more and more. And this right here would absolutely sway the tide for Izuku on his own behalf, easily, getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And Izuku would suplex City his way through the entirety of Class 1B. And this would teach all of them a bit of a lesson that there's always someone better. There's always someone that is ahead of you, and there's always someone that could be stronger than you. And obviously, Class 1A, they wouldn't fare too well against Izuku either, because Aizawa would tell him, surprise, they have to actually go against him as well. See how far they've come along since the last time they've done it. And of course, everyone's kind of not happy about this. They don't want to take on Izuku again. And the same thing would happen. Izuku would send them all to Suplex City and absolutely obliterate his entire class. At the end of the day, he's on a level of his own. People think of him as the next All Might, if not the next great hero. So every single mission involving any villain group and so on, even a villain group like the Liberation Army that would eventually be found out by one Hawks and many others, the Liberation Army would be swatted down by a team of Izuku and many others, and Izuku would have his fun with Redestro. Have his fun with a pretty big unit of a person, a big unit of a man, because he believes like this is fun. He hasn't gone against someone as big and as strong as this person ever. So he's excited, and that's exactly what he should be. He should be excited, because he begins to suplex his way through Redestro, and not only suplex his way through him, but all the heroes tear their way through that city, and soon, very soon, it seems like the entirety of Japan is cleansed from all villains. Cleansed from all the villains that you could possibly think of. All Might may have been on his last legs, may have been, well, completely over in terms of what he can do, but that's okay. Someone is there to take his spot. Someone that has prevented so much calamity already. Someone that is only a young student. The reigning, defending, undisputed WWE champion, Izuku Midoriya, is the next #1 hero in the making, and the next one in line to be up front of even All Might himself. But with that said, his journey may continue on, but this is where the story ends. And if you enjoyed, leave a like, leave a sub, and leave a comment down below. All that good stuff. And I hope all you have an amazing day. And I hope y'all continue to enjoy the what ifs, because I have a lot more for you. and a lot more to come. Later.